What's up, everybody? It's Tam. I'm here with a new sketch. We're going to be talking about this electro holler spaceship sketch I just did. Now, I'm going to give you my thought process as I play through the progress of this specific sketch, and then we're going to talk about some things I was thinking about along the way and some tips and tricks I have for you guys in terms of when you're starting to get into drawing concept arty kind of things like I am. Some things that I've found by listening to other people who are really, really great professionals in the field and kind of what they recommend, especially some of them who teach and what they recommend their students kind of look at when they're trying to get in and learn how to draw and concept some of these things and make things look good. So with that being said, let's get into the actual progress. So this is gonna be a little short. It's gonna be it's gonna be very fast. I just exported this from Procreate, so we're going to see the speedy version. Now this itself obviously did not take 2 minutes to draw. It took quite a bit longer than that. I would say overall maybe 2.5, 3 hours. That's pretty slow for something like this, but that's because I'm still trying to learn some of this stuff too. So one of the things I would like to say first is take your time, focus on the quality. Don't worry at all about how long it takes. If you gotta erase stuff and redraw things, if you gotta draw over things, if you need to make new layers and do another set of, if you have to, if you do a sketch layer and then you ink it on top of that, if that's what gets you the product that looks good, go for that and try to get the best quality you can, because the speed comes with repetition. It's not so much the speed is not what makes you good. It's getting to the quality that you want, and then over time you'll just do things faster if you keep with it. So don't worry about how fast this looks, because it definitely took a lot longer. This is really just how Procreate, they just take every brushstroke you do and mash it all together and take away all the gaps. So there's a lot of times where I'll draw something, I'll sit back, I'll look at it, I'll take a bit of a break from the drawing to kind of figure out where I'm going to work next and how I'm going to work it. And with that being said, let's take a look at that speedy drawing. So the first thing I start with is I always try to start warming up my hand and doing some ellipses, doing some lines. After that, I put in just a basic perspective kind of grid here. I just choose 2 points off the screen and I draw lines from them to kind of get an understanding of the 3D space. On top of that, you see that real quick, and I'm actually going to pause it right here. You could pretty much see from the finished drawing that I showed you before, we're like 90% of the way there, and it just started. And in fact, when I first drew this first part took very little time. When you're trying to draw these concepts, look for the big shapes, look for the big features, and get those on the page. Try to get them in perspective, or in the perspective that you want them to be in, and just make sure those forms are correct in terms of the big shapes. Now, they're arguably on the left side the big thrusters on the left side from our perspective. It looks a little bit off, so maybe that wasn't quite right in terms of the angle. It's supposed to be facing away. It kind of looks like there. I think I work it a little bit more later to make it read better, but other than that, most of this is pretty much correct. Now the bottom part looks a little weird, and I kind of put it in not really. I wanted to make an industrial vehicle, because I find while the cool concept space or the cool combat space vehicles look great and are very cool to do, I actually also find a lot of fun details, especially in the world building, where all the other kinds of vehicles, the workhorse vehicles, the industrial vehicles, the passenger vehicles, all of these, it creates a rich worldview when you have to solve solutions for all the nuanced areas around you. I mean, if you look around, there's probably all kinds of industrial-like things that have to be designed, and when you're doing some kind of concept work for another world, another setting, you can really put in a lot of detail into how the world works just by creating new new designs for everyday things. So for instance, if I'm looking around right now, I see a tea kettle. Maybe we have a tea kettle that's made out of stoneware, or maybe we have a tea kettle that's made out of a specific type of plant that's heat resistant. Maybe there's glass to signify it's around an area with sand, you know, like a beach town or a deserty area or just a barren landscape. You put in details like that. So that's why I'm kind of going for more of an industrial vehicle, because I tend to find a lot of fun design choices in there. I put these big thrusters on it because I want to show that this is the thing to really haul big stuff. And I want to make a tight packaged hauler, and I wanted to put a lot of power into it. So that's kind of why I'm trying to go here with the big thrusters. It looks like most of this thing is engine. You know, maybe there's a compartment up front for people driving in things, and I tried to make decisions like that. So as you can see, most of it's already done. The rest is just detail work from here on out. That's all it is. It's just detail, and that's where I'm gonna start playing it again right now. But that's what I want to talk about here is when it comes to the detail work. A lot of people, especially I thought this too, but it seems like a lot of people think if you want something to look good, you have to make it really clean and make sure everything is just, all the forms are perfect. And the reality is, when it comes to concept work like this, for things that are very complicated in terms of how they exist in the space and how they function, it's better to just slam on as many details as you want. Make it messy. We're talking about Firefly-esque vehicles, not so much the really clean, super modern vehicles that you think about in the real world that are machined perfectly. Because the reason why it's easier to draw things that are busy and messy is because if something's a little bit off, right? If one of these lines is a little bit off, well, there's 1,000 other lines to help reinforce how the form is actually supposed to read. Where if you have something that's very modern, very clean and sleek, think like a modern cell phone, you have like 8 lines and they all have to be perfect, and they all have to be the right thickness of line, they all have to be the exact angle, the exact length. But if you have something messy like I have here, it doesn't really matter so much. Now I'm gonna pause it right here, and as you can see, I've finished, well, it's a sketch, so it's not the best finish, but I decided this is where I was going to be finished with the line, and I start putting in marker. And I like doing this, and this is a workflow that I adapted from actual pen and paper. So what I did in college, because I went to an art school, what I did for our concept art classes is, my professor said, look, when you have to do concept art jobs, you're basically traveling to different areas wherever the shoot is going to be located, or whatever the office is going to be located. And you don't always have, especially back in the day when they were doing it, you didn't always have digital programs. So you just kind of work with what you can. And so what they would do is find a way to basically just use office supplies, because there's always an office supply store, right? So they try to use office supplies to do most of their drawing. And so that would be cheap copy paper, pencils, whatever you got, right? And then they would bring in Prismacolor markers. That was the brand that he liked and he recommended. And I got the cool gray. It can be warm gray or cool gray, doesn't really matter. And what you do is you do a pencil sketch, and then you put the marker over top, and then you ink it afterwards. And the reason is because the markers are alcohol soluble, and they will pull up some of the inks, especially the cheap ballpoint pens. But they tend to kind of leave the graphite from the pencil alone, so that way the line is there enough so that you can ink over top the marker after the marker dries. So with that, you put down your pencil, you put down your marker, then you put down your ink, and then on top of that, they would even sometimes use like whiteout or a white gel pen or a white colored pencil, and put in some highlights on top, maybe even a little gouache if they wanted to get, a thicker coverage of the white. But doing that digitally, basically it's all you do is you work with line, you make a new layer, put it underneath, and then put marker underneath that line. You're pretty much done. You can go through and you can tighten up the line if you want. I just left it messy because this is more of a sketch. This is more of like, hey, I just want to learn how to do these futuristic vehicles. And so that's what I did. So I'm going to play it to the completion now. I'm just really trying to get some tone in to describe the form. It's not so much about the lighting, it's more about the form. And then I throw in a nice backdrop just to clean it up. That's another thing I want to talk about, is when you're doing sketches, try to clean it up at the end and try to make a nice presentation. Now what I usually do is I just throw a solid black or solid color behind, and I kind of cut through the actual drawing because I think it just looks nice. Instead of putting it totally enveloped by the background, put it partially enveloped by the background. It kind of makes it feel like it's coming out of the backdrop and makes it feel more 3D. And from then on, I just do a couple small things, like I add a little bit of noise because I think it adds a nice texture. It makes it feel more like paper. It helps the marker feel more like marker. And then I think I might have sharpened it a little bit at the end too. I'm not really sure. Those are kind of standard digital ending or digital cleanup techniques for drawings and paintings to make them look a little bit more like real life. So that's it for that. Now I want to share one other tip, and that is when you're doing these concepts, make strong decisions. Now you can see here when I started, I actually had just like the bottom hauler part was kind of more of a clamp, and I said, I'm not really feeling that. How about we do like an electricity hauler and have this be more of like an electromagnetism kind of deal. That way it doesn't matter what's picking up, as long as it has a universal pickup port, it can pick up whatever load that you want. And that's a strong decision that I had to make partway through, and I recommend that you do that. Really come up with, don't just put random details on there like, oh well, I'm just gonna put some antennas here and a communication dish here. But say why. Why does it do that? So for instance, for this I said let's put big chonking engines because I want power. I want this to really be in a heavy industrial vehicle. And I said let's do an electro hauler because I want this to be futuristic, but I want it to be kind of grungy. I want it to be not totally safe. I want it to kind of exude that sense of, we're just trying to get a job done here. We're kind of using junkers. This is not the best, area of the universe. Maybe we're out towards the outer edges of the known area of space for this particular world, and maybe we're in a environment that's somewhat hostile, and so they're really just trying to pack on parts that are not maybe the best grade, but they tend to perform well under crazy circumstances. And so I made those decisions, I made those strong decisions, and they will lead you towards designs that are stronger and have more of a statement about the world around them. So they're self-descriptive. And so that's what I would recommend you do. So those are the quick tips I have for this sketch. That's pretty much all I have for it. It wasn't terribly long of a sketch. Obviously it took me a while, but the end result doesn't take a long while to get to. It's still pretty loose, and that's okay. And I want you to know, if you are doing any of these sketches, it's okay to have something a little bit more loose, as long as it reads well and you present it well, and then you move on from there and try to clean it up. Either this one or maybe do another one. Every time you do a sketch, try to make it a little cleaner, try to make it a little better, try to improve on one area. And that's what I'll probably be doing for the next one. So thanks for watching. I hope some of my knowledge was helpful. I hope you picked up something from this, and I hope to see you again next time. I'm Tam. See you then. Bye-bye.